When my husband Richard died, I thought grief would be the hardest part. But 17 days after his funeral, my son managed to break what was left of my heart with 4 words spoken so casually it took a moment to register. "I sold your car." He said it like he was discussing the weather, his voice brisk, businesslike, utterly detached. For a few seconds, I thought I'd misheard. Then the truth landed sharp and heavy. The Toyota Richard's pride and joy, the car he'd maintained with loving precision for over a decade, was gone. I stood in the kitchen, still wearing my hospital scrubs, after a 12-hour shift, staring at the phone in disbelief. "Andrew, what did you say?" My voice sounded strange to my own ears, thin, unsteady against the refrigerator's hum. "The Toyota, Mom," he repeated, irritation creeping in. "I sold it yesterday. Got $8,000 for it, which is great for a 10-year-old car. I already put the money into an account to manage your finances. You need to be practical now that Dad's gone." I gripped the counter for balance, my eyes fixed on the faded wallpaper Richard and I had hung when we first bought this house 26 years ago. "Andrew," I said slowly, "I need that car for work. The hospital's across town, there's no direct bus." He sighed, impatient. "Mom, you're 58. Should you even be working at your age? Besides, insurance and maintenance would be too expensive on your own." His words landed like slaps. On my own. He'd said it so easily, as though my entire identity had vanished with Richard's last breath. When he hung up, I stood motionless among sympathy cards and half-eaten casseroles from neighbors. Richard would have known how to handle this firm but gentle, never letting conflict turn to bitterness. But Richard wasn't here anymore. Only me and the echo of a son's betrayal reverberating through an empty kitchen. I looked out the window toward the driveway. The rectangle of bare concrete mocked me, that space where Richard always parked at a perfect angle. The reality of what Andrew had done unfurled slowly. He'd sold my only means of getting to work without asking. I'd need to leave the house by 5:30 a.m. to catch 2 buses and would return after 8 p.m. on late shifts. In winter, both trips would be in darkness. Then another thought froze me: the car title. Richard had transferred it into my name for our 30th anniversary. Andrew had no legal right to sell it. Heart pounding, I rushed to the filing cabinet in our spare room. The folder labeled "Vehicle" was missing. Insurance, house deed, warranties. Everything else was untouched. Andrew must have taken the documents when he came to help sort through Dad's papers last week. He had planned this. My phone buzzed, a new text from Andrew. It was a bus schedule with multiple transfers ending with, "The exercise and fresh air will be good for you. Also, we should go through Dad's tools soon. I can probably get a good price for them." Richard's tools. The ones he'd collected over 40 years as a mechanic. The same tools he used to teach neighborhood kids basic car maintenance every summer. A cold, sharp anger rose inside me, slicing through grief like ice. Richard would never have wanted me to be silent. I dialed the one person who might know what to do: Margaret, our family attorney and Richard's oldest friend. She arrived 40 minutes later, silver hair pulled into its usual no-nonsense bun. When I told her what Andrew had done, her outrage was immediate. "He sold your car without permission," she demanded. "That's not just wrong, Evelyn, it's illegal." She paced my living room, voice hard with disbelief. "You said he put the money in an account. One you don't control." I nodded, shame warming my cheeks. Margaret stopped pacing, her expression softening. "Evelyn, this isn't helplessness. It's shock. You've been through a trauma, but we'll fix this." I told her Richard always kept duplicates of important papers in the car's glove compartment. Margaret's eyes sharpened. "That sounds like him, prepared for every contingency." Then she hesitated. "There's something else. Richard came to me about 3 months ago. He'd been having chest pains. The doctor warned him to slow down. My breath caught. He never told me. He didn't want you to worry, she said gently. From her portfolio, she took out a sealed envelope with my name written in Richard's neat handwriting. He asked me to give you this if anything happened, and if Andrew started behaving, well, exactly as he is now. The envelope was heavy in my shaking hands. Margaret continued briskly. But first, we need to get that car back. Do you know who Andrew sold it to? I shook my head. She called in a favor from an old contact at the DMV. When she returned from the kitchen, she wore a triumphant smile. Got it. A dentist in Boulder, Dr. Paul Mercer. Bought it for his daughter as a graduation gift. It's still in his garage. They haven't even picked it up yet. Relief flooded me. So what now? We go to Boulder, she said. First thing tomorrow. That night, I sat in bed holding Richard's unopened letter, tracing the familiar handwriting. Even from beyond the grave, he was still guiding me. Whatever was hidden in that glove compartment, whatever he had tried to protect it, was waiting for me. And for the first time since his funeral, I felt something other than grief. I felt purpose. The next morning, Margaret and I drove toward Boulder beneath a soft gray sky. She insisted on taking the wheel, claiming I looked too exhausted to drive, and I didn't argue. My mind was fixed on one thing, what Richard could possibly have left in that glove compartment. The Toyota had been more than a car to him. It was a symbol of stability, a vessel of memories. Somehow I knew that what waited inside was far more than spare paperwork. As the city gave way to the mountains, Margaret asked gently, "Did Richard ever talk to you about investments?" "Not really," I admitted. He had his pension from the auto shop. We saved a little, but we lived modestly. She nodded thoughtfully. Richard was smarter about money than most people realized. He always thought in systems. Mechanics do. They see how every small part affects the whole. When we arrived at Dr. Mercer's house, I expected confrontation. Instead, we were greeted by kindness. Dr. Mercer, tall and soft-spoken, stood beside a young woman who looked embarrassed. "Mrs. Winters," he said warmly, shaking my hand. "I'm so sorry about this misunderstanding. Had I known the sale wasn't legitimate, I never would have agreed to it." His compassion cracked something in me. "Thank you," I managed, voice thick. I need that car." He nodded. "You don't owe me anything. Keep the money. Call it setting things right." His daughter gave me a small apologetic smile as Dr. Mercer led us to the garage. There it was, our Toyota still shining faintly beneath a layer of dust. Seeing it again nearly undid me. Margaret handled the formalities, and soon enough, the keys were back in my hands. As we pulled onto the road, Margaret nodded toward the glove compartment. "Are you ready?" I hesitated, heart pounding, then pressed the latch. Inside sat a stack of registration papers, a folded letter, and a small sealed manila envelope marked "For Evelyn," urgent in Richard's familiar script. My breath caught. Margaret suggested we stop at a scenic overlook, and I agreed. We parked with the Rockies stretching before us, vast and eternal. Hands trembling, I opened the envelope. Inside were several documents and a USB drive. The letter on top began with the words that made my throat tighten. "My dearest Evelyn, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and something has happened that made you need these papers urgently. I'm guessing it involves Andrew." Margaret watched silently as I read. For 30 years, the letter continued. "I've been investing quietly in real estate. What began as one small property with my first bonus has grown into something much larger. The company, Winter Mechanics LLC, is in your name. As of last month, it owned 17 residential properties and 4 commercial buildings, including the Aspen Heights apartments." I gasped aloud. "Aspen Heights. That's where Andrew lives." Margaret gave a small, knowing smile. "Keep reading." "Yes. Our son has been renting one of those apartments without realizing he's been paying rent to his own mother. I kept this from you so you'd never feel burdened by managing it. Everything is in your name legally. I left duplicates of all documents here in case Andrew ever tried to interfere. The management company, Reliable Properties, is run by Susan Chen. She knows to expect your call if anything happens to me. At the bottom, Richard had added, "All my love always. You are stronger than you think. Use this freedom wisely and help Andrew find his way back to what matters." When I finished reading, tears blurred the words. Margaret squeezed my hand. "He built all of this for you, Evelyn, and he trusted you to use it well." I looked down at the papers, the deed statements, and proof of ownership. My husband, the humble mechanic who'd lived simply his entire life, had quietly created a fortune. "Why didn't he tell me?" I whispered. "He wanted it to be perfect before you saw it," Margaret said softly. "And he knew if Andrew found out too soon, he might try to control it." The truth sank in like sunlight through fog. Richard hadn't just provided security, he'd protected my independence from a son who believed money defined worth. That evening, Margaret locked the documents in her office safe. I went home and opened the USB drive. Inside was a lifetime's worth of meticulous spreadsheets and handwritten notes, property values, renovation plans, letters to me. One folder was labeled Evelyn's Dreams. Inside were designs for our house renovations, travel itineraries for Italy, scholarship plans for young mechanics. Every dream we'd postponed because we couldn't afford it, Richard had been quietly building a future where we could. I sat at his old desk, the glow of the computer screen illuminating tears I couldn't stop. My husband had left me a legacy of love disguised as an empire of brick and steel. And Andrew, my son, had sold my car, unaware he'd just sold a key to his father's secret. When my phone buzzed again, it was Andrew. "Checked on you this morning, weren't home. Listed Dad's tools online. Should get a few thousand." A deep calm replaced the anger that once paralyzed me. Richard had left me the strength to stand on my own. And now it was time to use it. The following afternoon, Andrew appeared at my doorstep, his confidence radiating through every careless word. "I see you got the car back," he said, stepping inside uninvited. "Care to explain how?" I set down my tea calmly. "The buyer returned it when he learned it was sold illegally." Andrew frowned. "Mom, I was just helping. You can't handle that car alone. It's expensive to maintain." "The car was paid for and maintained by your father for years," I replied evenly. "The insurance costs less than what you spend on coffee each month." He bristled. "You're grieving. You're not thinking clearly. I'm just trying to protect you by selling my property without permission." His face flushed. "I put the money in an account for you. An account in your name." I corrected my tone, quiet but sharp. "And as of this morning, I have that money back." He blinked, surprised. "How?" "I have resources you don't know about." Something in my voice stopped him. The authority of a woman who had rediscovered her footing. For the first time, my son looked uncertain. "Mom, what's gotten into you?" I met his gaze steadily. "Since your father died, I've realized that standing up for myself isn't selfish. It's survival." That evening, I sat at Richard's old desk and drafted a list of next steps. The first, meet Susan Chen, the manager of Winter Mechanics LLC, the company Richard had created in my name. When I arrived at Reliable Properties the next morning, Susan greeted me with warm professionalism. "Mrs. Winters," she said, shaking my hand. "Richard spoke of you often. He wanted to make sure everything would run smoothly when you were ready to take over." Her words hit me hard. He'd planned this transition down to the last detail. She led me to a conference room where folders lay neatly arranged. "There are 21 properties under your ownership," she explained. 17 residential, 4 commercial. The crown jewel is Aspen Heights. The irony wasn't lost on me. My son's luxury apartment building, his status symbol, was one of my assets. Susan continued. "Richard updated these every quarter. His records were immaculate. You can be as involved or as hands-off as you wish. Reliable Properties handles operations, but you have full authority. As she spoke, I realized the scale of Richard's work. Decades of quiet diligence, small reinvestments that had grown into something extraordinary. He had left me not just wealth, but control, something Andrew had been so eager to take away. When we finished reviewing the portfolio, Susan opened a drawer and handed me a small blue box. "Richard left this for you," she said softly. Inside was a delicate gold pendant shaped like a key dotted with small diamonds. A note beneath it read, "You've always held the key to my heart. Now you hold the key to our future. Use it wisely, my love." Tears blurred my vision as I fastened it around my neck. It rested just above my heart, a reminder that his faith in me was stronger than death itself. That afternoon, I told Susan I wanted to tour Aspen Heights. She arranged it for the following morning. Aspen Heights gleamed in the sunlight when I arrived. Modern, sleek, everything Andrew prized about appearances. Raj Patel, the building manager, greeted me with professional courtesy, unaware I was the new owner. "Our tenants are mostly executives and professionals," he explained proudly. We toured the gym, rooftop pool, and lounge, polished perfection everywhere. Then I asked, "What about Unit 14B? Raj hesitated. "That tenant has caused minor issues, noise complaints, parking violations. He's polite but entitled." I hid a smile. "Document everything I said. Follow policy, no exceptions." Later, as I sat in the Toyota in the visitor lot, I watched residents come and go. Andrew believed success was the image you presented to the world. He never realized the quiet power behind the scenes, the people who built, owned, and sustained what others merely occupied. That evening, he texted me, "Dinner at my place tonight, 7:00 p.m. We need to talk about your finances." I smiled faintly. "I'll be there." His apartment when I arrived was everything I expected. Sterile elegance, designer furniture, no trace of warmth. "Mom," he greeted me, pouring wine. "You need to think long-term. I've found a senior living community, Morningside Gardens. You'd be comfortable there." "Andrew, I'm 58. He shrugged. "It's not about age. It's about practicality. You shouldn't worry about maintenance or money." I set down my glass. "You're suggesting I sell the home your father and I built, move away, and give up everything familiar because you think I can't manage it?" He sighed, exasperated. "You're being emotional. Dad always handled things." "No," I corrected softly. "We handled them together. And I can handle them now." He looked genuinely baffled. "Mom, you can't afford that house." "Oh, Andrew," I said gently. "You have no idea what I can afford." He frowned, not yet understanding the layers behind my words. I stood smoothing my skirt. "Thank you for dinner. But I make my own decisions now." "Mom," he said sharply, "you're not thinking clearly." I turned toward the door, the key pendant glinting in the lamplight. I've never been clearer. When I stepped into the night air, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. Richard's plan was unfolding perfectly, not through confrontation, but through quiet revelation. Tomorrow, Andrew would wake to a world where his assumptions no longer held power. The next morning, Andrew's name flashed across my phone 3 times before I finally answered. His tone was sharp, agitated. "Mom, this is ridiculous. The building manager says I have 3 lease violations, noise complaints, thermostat issues, and my bike in the stairwell. They're threatening to revoke my lease." I let him rant before replying evenly. "Then you should address the issues, Andrew. Rules exist for a reason." "Rules?" he scoffed. "Mom, I pay premium rent for that place. This is harassment." "Or accountability," I said softly and ended the call. That afternoon, I met with Susan Chen again. She confirmed that Reliable Properties had begun ownership transition inspections across all properties, standard procedure under new management. "Raj Patel's reports are thorough," she added with a hint of amusement. "Your son's unit happens to have the most violations." I smiled faintly. Then he'll learn something valuable about consequences. Later, as I tended Richard's garden, Andrew left another string of frustrated messages. In each one, his voice grew more desperate, less entitled. The irony wasn't lost on me. For years, he had viewed rules as flexible inconveniences. Now stripped of privilege, he was learning what it felt like to be treated like everyone else. That evening, Margaret called. "Your son just reached out to me," she said, her voice laced with disbelief. "He wants to hire me to sue Reliable Properties for discrimination." I laughed softly. "Did you tell him who owns the company?" "Not yet." "But Evelyn, how long do you plan to keep this up?" "Until he learns that respect isn't something you buy," I replied. "It's something you earn." 3 days later, Andrew appeared at my door again, this time unshaven, tired, and confused. "We need to talk," he said. "Something strange is happening." I invited him in, noticing how restless he seemed pacing the living room. "They raised my rent," he said suddenly, "by 30%. It's outrageous." When I tried to use my connections to push back, the manager said something weird. "Ownership has reviewed your case and determined standard market rates apply regardless of status." What does that even mean? It's like they're targeting me. "Maybe it means you're finally being treated like everyone else," I said gently. He blinked. "Whose side are you on? You're supposed to support me." "I'm on the side of fairness," I said. "You've been living comfortably paying below market for a luxury apartment. Why should you pay less than your neighbors?" "Because that's how the world works," he snapped. "It's about who you know." "No," I said quietly. "That's how you think it should work. Your father knew better." Andrew's face hardened. Dad lacked ambition. He could have owned a shop, maybe a chain, but he was content fixing other people's cars. "I don't want that kind of small life." The words cut deeper than he realized. "Your father's small life," I said steadily, "put you through college, kept food on our table, and taught you integrity. He measured success by contribution, not applause." For the first time, he looked uncertain. His voice faltered. "I just want what's best for you, Mom. Financial security, a better life." "You assume I don't have those things because they don't look the way you expect," I replied. "That says more about you than about me." He fell silent. When he finally spoke again, his voice was smaller. "So what am I supposed to do about this rent increase? It feels like the universe is punishing me." "Maybe," I said softly, "it's teaching you." He stood abruptly, frustration breaking through. "You've changed, Mom. You're colder, harder." "Not harder," I corrected. "Just stronger. You mistook kindness for weakness. I'm still your mother, but I'm no longer someone you can control." He stared at me for a long time before leaving, slamming the door behind him. The house fell quiet, but I felt no guilt, only a sense of calm. For the first time, I wasn't reacting from pain. I was leading with purpose. That night, I opened Richard's journal, the one I'd found in his safe deposit box. Inside were decades of letters, each written to me. In one, he described buying our first rental property. Andrew calls it a waste of time, he'd written. He doesn't understand that true wealth isn't money, it's freedom to live with integrity. Someday, I hope he learns. I turned to the last entry dated 2 weeks before his death. "My tools will outlast me. They've built more than cars, they've built a life of purpose. If I can't teach Andrew that myself, maybe you can." By the time I closed the journal, my plan was clear. Richard's tools would teach our son what lectures never could. The next morning, I called Andrew. "Come by tomorrow evening," I said. "There's something you need to see." He hesitated. "Mom, if this is about the rent, it's about your father." When he arrived the next day, I led him to Richard's workshop. The scent of oil and metal filled the air, unchanged since Richard's last day there. Everything was exactly as he'd left it. "Why are we here?" Andrew asked, glancing around nervously. "Because this is where your father's real wealth lived," I said, gesturing to the neatly hung tools. "These built our life, paid your tuition, fixed neighbors' cars, helped friends. You wanted to sell them for quick cash. But these tools are worth more than any dollar amount." He frowned, defensive. "Mom, they're just tools." "No," I said, picking up Richard's favorite wrench. "They're the reason you had every opportunity you did. And while you chased status, your father quietly built something much greater. I handed him Richard's journal. Read. He opened it reluctantly, scanning the pages, then stopped. What is this? The truth, I said. Your father wasn't just a mechanic. He built a real estate portfolio over 30 years, 17 homes, 4 commercial properties all in my name, including Aspen Heights. Andrew froze. My apartment building, yes. The one where you've been paying rent to your mother. The inspection, the rent increase, they weren't coincidences. They were lessons. He sank onto the stool, speechless. Your father didn't want to humiliate you. I continued softly. He wanted you to understand what real success means. Service, integrity, quiet work done well. You've spent your life chasing image, but everything you admire was built by hands like his. Andrew looked up at me, eyes wide, his arrogance crumbling. You knew. I do now, I said. And I'm choosing to honor him by helping you see what he left behind. Not just property, purpose. He looked down at the journal again, fingers tracing Richard's handwriting. I didn't know, he whispered. I know, I said gently. But now you do. We stood in silence, the hum of memory thick between us. I could almost feel Richard's presence there, steady, forgiving, patient. For the first time in years, Andrew didn't argue. He simply nodded, the wrench still in his hand, and whispered, He built all this for us. I smiled softly. And now it's our turn to build what comes next. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more true stories of love, strength, and redemption. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Evelyn's place?